Welcome back to the Great Give Radiothon on WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio. What a great 2 days we're having here. We're on day 2 of the 36-hour blowout we do every year when we're raising money, helping nonprofits throughout New Haven do such great work, enrich our society in every way, our hearts, our souls, our bellies, the roof over our head, make sure roof over our head. 488 nonprofits in all, jointly raising money through thegreatgive.org. That's a website that the Community Foundation runs. And you can pick all the good groups you'd like to support. We're going jointly trying to get to $1.5 million this hour. We're going to ask you to look up the Audubon Society, and you're going to hear why in a minute. But if you want to just take it on faith, go to the Audubon Society, give them some money. But we're going to hear firsthand why that's a good deal. Tasha Smith from the Community Foundation. So you think we're on schedule? You think we're going to hit that 1.5 million?
Right now, we just hit 1.1 million.
Oh, so we're 400 to go. Oh, man, I hope we get over
a little
the
bit
top.
over 9 hours, guys, to raise $400,000.
Oh, let's get there. You know, you and your colleagues at the Community Foundation put so much work in advance for these 36 hours.
Yes.
And then you spend the 36 hours just getting everybody energetic in new ways at different parts of the day. So you had the happy hour with our great new mascot, Gigi, for great last night at a bar. You have, by the certain hours, the groups send out, they're raising the money, send out their own emails about this hour. We're looking for a certain number of people. We bring people here on the Radiothon to tell us why we should give them money.
The community is busy during these 36 hours.
And I forgot to ask Gus to read his poem. Oh, no. Well, I'm not going to forget that requirement from Patrick Cummins, who is the executive director of the Audubon Society. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Paul.
Nice
Thank
for coming
you to the
on.
Community Foundation for including us.
Patrick, do you have a song or a poem to read to us?
I do not have a song or a poem to
And
read.
Gus did remember. Oh, well, you can tell us about the bird. So is this the Connecticut Audubon Society?
Yes, the Connecticut Audubon Society. We've been around for over 120 years, focused on conserving birds, other wildlife, and the outdoors here in Connecticut.
Wonderful. And where are you guys based?
My office is down in Fairfield, but we're scattered throughout the state. We have more than 3,000 acres that we protect, and we have 7 nature education facilities around the state, including in Pomfret, Milford, Fairfield, Sherman, and Glastonbury.
So what do you got in Milford? Tell us about that, because that's in Greater New Haven.
Well, that's one of my favorite places in the state. That is the Coastal Center. It's the Milford Point Coastal Center, right on Milford Point Road there. And it's a gateway to both the state wildlife management area there and the Stuart B. McKinney National Wildlife Refuge. It's an amazing place. There's over 1,000 acres of wildlife management area there, one of the most beautiful tidal marshes remaining in the state, right at the mouth of the Housatonic River. And on one side of the bar, you look out over this the Housatonic River and the marsh, and on the other side, you look out over Long Island Sound. And there's a nice sandbar there that's a nesting area for piping plovers and least terns. More than 300 different species of birds have been recorded over there over the years.
So, you know, as a society, we have what sometimes can feel like, but doesn't have to be, a contradiction in goals. We'd like to develop. When we have development, we hear that word. We want to grow, even though Connecticut's not growing. We want to grow. We want to build our tax base, build our population. We want to build stuff places.
Of course.
At the same time, we want to preserve our wildlife and our natural. We want to preserve land and access to the coast. We don't want to build on everything, right? Sometimes we build up, but that can block out stuff. And part of what you guys are about is preserve. Why is it important to preserve nature? Why is it important to preserve natural beauty, but also tidal marshes and birds?
Well, for their own right, for one thing, Connecticut actually has more of what we call the urban wildlife interface than any other state in the country. That is that more people live in wildlife habitat than anywhere else. And I think that's part of what makes Connecticut a great place to live. You should hear of Connecticut as the country. Well, to a large degree, it is. There are millions of people that live here, but there's great habitat interspersed there. There's great places where you can get away and feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Even in New Haven, you can get lost in Edgewood Park.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, when you growing up in New Haven, Natasha, where would you go to get
I
nature?
never considered it like the country, but my New York boyfriend does. He said,
Yeah.
it's so country here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. But I get your point.
And, you know, like there's East Rock Park here. There's West Rock Park.
Those are
there's
amazing
Sandy
places.
Point over in West Haven. Sandy Point's a place where we do a lot of work trying to conserve the shorebirds as part of the Audubon Alliance for Coastal Waterbirds. And we're trying to preserve the nesting shorebirds there, but also to try and preserve access for the public there.
Which is not always great in Connecticut. Down in Greenwich, you can't really go to the beach.
Right, and that is one place. You know, they have non-resident passes for non-West Haven residents, but it's an amazing place to go and see the wildlife. It's great beaches all over West Haven, but that Sandy and Morse Point area is fairly unique. It's a globally important bird area.
Tell me about that. Globally important.
Yeah, it actually supports a lot of a species called the semi-palmated sandpiper that migrates from Hudson's Bay right to the East Coast, right here to Connecticut, nonstop.
Where's Hudson's Bay?
Flight. And then they fly down to South America, again, nonstop. So Connecticut's marshes and beaches, like Sandy Point, are critical for them to be able to fatten up and rest up for this long migratory journey.
Wow.
So what we do with our partners in the Audubon Alliance is sort of show people how cool these birds are and how you can observe them and just go a little out of your way to try not to roost, to scare the roosting flocks, and then we'll have better habitat for them.
It's how
here.
we connect to the world around us, other
Yes.
creatures and our natural environments. Because you mentioned earlier, which I happen to agree with you, as a vegan, I care for their own sake that the birds are protected. But self-interested wise, isn't there also a reason that we as human beings want to preserve this for our own sake?
Of course, we are a product of our environment. We require clean air. We require clean water. We require good soils to grow our food in. And you really know it's a really complex web out there of what's eating what. You never know what.
And what's eating us.
Yeah, and you never know what
Inside out.
removing one piece of that web, cutting a few of those strands, what impact that may ultimately have on us. For one thing, birds and other wildlife are a great indicator that our habitats are healthy or are unhealthy.
I've heard of canaries and coal mines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can be a canary in the coal mine. But, here's one example. There used to be a bird called the passenger pigeon, which used to come in huge flocks, and it would move all over the eastern U.S., and it would come into forests to eat the mast, that is nuts, like hickories and chestnut and oak acorns. And they would descend on the forests by the millions. They were shot to extinction, and also because of habitat loss. So there's no longer these hordes of bohemian birds that would come in and take care of all this excess food. So instead, those acorns and such fell to the ground of the forest. And one hypothesis is that because there weren't these birds to eat those excess seeds anymore, other species came in, like white-tailed deer and white-footed mouse. And those are the vectors for Lyme disease, for deer ticks. So perhaps removing that, if you call it a nut predator, from our ecosystem may have created the conditions that have fostered a disease that is a
Oh boy,
problem
and
for
Lyme
humans
disease out of
today.
control this year. So,
Wow.
so Pastor Cummins, a lot of change happens all the time in nature, no matter what human beings do.
Yes.
It's part of what we
Very
monitor,
dynamic.
and we want that to happen. And human beings take actions that interfere with the natural process, cause all sort of unintended problems, and could kill us eventually. How does the Audubon Society, when you look at how to preserve nature, how do you navigate that line? How do you try not to get in the way of nature evolving on its own, and not having? And human beings are part of nature too, and part of that process, right?
Yes.
But how do you distinguish between that and the actions we take that can destroy our natural habitat?
Well, there's really no wilderness in Connecticut. And I think that our good actions have to make up for our bad actions. I think we have to be an active participant in stewarding our natural resources here in Connecticut. For one thing, knowing what areas are important and what areas are less important.
Which is part of what you do.
Yes.
So if people go to thegreatgive.org right now and look up the Audubon Society, part of what their dollars will be doing is to help that happen.
Yeah, we have a thing that we're partnering on called the Connecticut Bird Atlas. We're working with UConn and the state of Connecticut on developing this atlas that will tell us what sites in the state specifically are important to what nesting birds. So we'll look and say, oh, well, wood thrush, which is a common species in Connecticut, but one that's declining quite a bit. They're scattered throughout the state, but there are certain sites that are much more important to it than others. So we'll be able to look at that and say, well, this block of forest right here is very important to wood thrush. Well, it's mostly protected, but you look, there's this one parcel in there that isn't protected and could be developed someday. So if we're proactive and then start working to protect that one key parcel, we can be a lot more effective at conserving wood thrush, which we definitely care about. So the Bird Atlas is one project that your support would help us with.
What are some of your other projects and initiatives you have going on?
Sure. We have the Audubon Alliance for Coastal Waterbirds, which I had mentioned earlier, where we work up and down the coast, including at Sandy Point, with Audubon Connecticut and with the Roger Tory Peterson Institute of Natural History to conserve nesting waterbirds, that is, least terns, American oyster catchers, and piping plovers. And Connecticut's very important for them. We have actually had record success in the last couple of years with American oyster catchers and with piping plovers. And this ties in with your question, too, because it is only because of our intervention and our stewardship of these species that they're doing well. We have to put up special cages around them so the predators don't get their eggs, so people don't step on their eggs. Those predators are more abundant than they would normally be because people leave food scraps around, and we get more raccoons, we get more coyotes, more foxes, and things like that. So part of what we're doing is working with the municipalities to manage these sites so that they can keep them open for public access and that the birds can still be successful there. Of course, we have our Milford Point Coastal Center, which is an amazing place to go visit. We have all sorts of educational programs going on there. One program that we have coming up from May 18th through the 20th is our Migration Madness Big Weekend. We have more than 30 events throughout the state, including events at our Coastal Center. There's a bird walk on Friday afternoon there, a beginner's bird walk. There's also a program on landscaping your yard for birds and other wildlife on Saturday afternoon, I believe there. But
You're
you can,
busy.
yeah, you can find that on ConnecticutAudubon.org or on our Facebook page.
Cool.
Patrick Cummins, the Executive Director of the Audubon Society of Connecticut. Thank you for coming on The Great Give. We wish you luck. We hope everybody gives you some money this hour at thegreatgive.org. Before you go, tell me about sometime you were out in nature in the last week or month where it was really special to be there and reminded you why you spend your days trying to preserve our natural environment in Connecticut.
Sure. I was just yesterday at a place in Westbrook, a piece of property that I'd worked with the state to try and protect, in the headwaters of the Mononkatisak River, right near the Stuart B. McKinney National Wildlife Refuge. And we were watching a new fish ladder that had been put in there so that the fish can come from Long Island Sound and get up above this dam into a mill pond there, create really good spawning habitat for things like river herring and eels. And we saw these little tiny glass eels. We saw maybe dozens of them starting to go up and try and go into this fish ladder to get across this dam. Those eels would have been stuck at the bottom of the dam if we had not been able to protect this property and if the state hadn't been able to put in this fish ladder. So I had spent a lot of time working with the state trying to protect this parcel. It made it possible. And also is going to make things like alewife be able to get up in there and river herring. And those are very important food for not just ocean birds, but birds right in Long Island Sound. Things like osprey, terns, herons, egrets.
And we've done that in the West River, too. We have a fish ladder with the alewives and the herring benefiting from that. So as you said earlier in this conversation, you're doing some good things to make up for the bad things human beings are doing to our natural environment.
Exactly. And Long Island Sound is such an important place. So many of us live near Long Island Sound. We go down there to recreate. We go down there to go fishing. We go boating out there. We go down there to see the birds. And having a healthy Long Island Sound ecosystem is about the best thing we can do for Connecticut.
All right. Well, keep it going.
Awesome.
And our listeners and we are going to try to help you do all you can by donating through the Great Give to the Connecticut Audubon Society. Patrick Cummins, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the work you're doing for coming in.
Much.
Ratasha Smith and I will be back in just a couple minutes because we're going to keep it going, right, Ratasha?
Yes.
The Great Give. We're going till 8 o'clock tonight, The Great Give. We're here at the Radiothon at WNHH-FM. You're going to hear a lot more good news about New Haven and ways you can help. So stay tuned. And meanwhile, let the Afro-Semitic experience serenade you.